how to enhance your expertise, your impact, and your income with my IFS-based process of conflict resolution. I want to give you an overview of what I've learned as an internal family systems therapist. I wrote the book, Compassionate Mediation, How to Add Passion to Your Marriage or Compassion to Your Divorce, which Dick Schwartz endorsed at the back as relationship healing at its best. I've been a therapist, a mediator, an attorney, a Chopra certified teacher of meditation, yoga, and Ayurveda. And I have funneled everything I've learned into a process called compassion mediation. I am offering a certification to enhance, to increase, create a bigger outreach, create a different impact. And you do that by gaining expertise. At least that's what I did. I've spent years studying with the best teachers, Dick Schwartz and all the people at the IFS Institute, Deepak Chopra, David G., and so many mentors and guides on top of that. And what it's enabled me to do is to take my process of compassionate communication and compassionate mediation and reach more people. And that's what I want to offer to you. How do you take where you are now and reach more people? Because it's my passion to share this information with you. I have mentored many people. I continue to mentor. But for now, let's talk about how do you enhance your expertise, your impact, and your income. In terms of IFS, I'm going to explain how I've used it, how I use it in my practice, how you can use it in your practice, whether you choose to take the certification with me or not. It's a great for teaching compassionate communication, teaching people how to connect to their best self and relate from their best self, let go of their limiting beliefs and judgments, unburden pain from the past, and relate from our hearts. And when you learn how to help people do that, which I'm sure you're doing on some level, but as you get more expertise, it does increase your impact because you can go deeper with the people that you see. As a therapist, I do individual counseling, couples counseling, divorce mediation. I've led groups, I teach workshops. And if that's part of your dream, I'd like to help to see you manifest it. If you want to do that, learning IFS, learning some of the tools of compassionate mediation will increase your expertise. What does that mean? If you're a therapist, a coach, or a professional, or want to help people, you have some degree of training and some degree of expertise. But I found that in my 35 years of practice, and when I was going through my own divorce, that there wasn't anyone offering the type of program that I offer. Meaning people usually went to marriage counseling for marriage counseling. If they had a thought of getting divorced or separating, they didn't say it because it wouldn't be cool for the therapist to think they were thinking of leaving. So they stayed in the situation, but they weren't really speaking for all of their parts, the ambivalent parts, the parts that wanted to stay or go, they weren't sure. So if they mentioned separation or divorce, often the therapist would feel that they failed at marriage counseling and send them to a mediator or an attorney. That's what happened to me many years ago. My husband and I were married 20 years. He was my college sweetheart. We were looking at the possibility of a separation or a divorce, and there was no one that could help us the way I want to help you become an expert to help your clients. Compassionate mediation allows you to talk about everything. And it's not just for people that are thinking of separating or divorcing. It teaches you how to become an expert in conflict resolution using IFS. And I'm going to explain what I do in my first session, so you'll see how I use that. And I want to funnel that to you because it's never too late to manifest your dreams. It's never too late to say yes to whatever you want to create and to look at whatever roadblocks have been in your way. So sometimes getting more expertise, maybe you're afraid of what it takes to pay for it, which is a valid concern. You might be concerned that you already have enough learning. Why do you need to learn more? And what I like to do with the people I teach is not only teach them an expertise, but to create an environment of personal and spiritual growth. There are no accidents. So if you're listening, maybe you're leaning in. And what it is, it's a chance to get that expertise, learn how to increase your impact, learn how that increases your income, and helps you manifest whatever your goals are for your future. So whether it's more confidence in what you're doing now, more clients, more collaboration, more referrals, more leisure time, more income, whatever you want more of. That's where we start together. And then I give you my expertise in templates, handouts, manuals, videos, audios, practicum, personal mentoring to give you that expertise. And I want you to think about, what would it be like for you to be the go-to relationship expert in your community, to be able to say you have a new expertise. When I first created compassionate mediation and I trademarked the term, I realized I trademarked the wrong term. People think it's just mediation, it's just for couples, and it's just for divorce. Wrong and wrong. Okay, it is used for all of those, but I use it with everyone that comes into my office for whatever reason. They might be depressed. They may be having weight issues. They may be anxious about something. They may be facing a job loss or transition. I start with the first interview, bringing my expertise that I want to share with you. So here's a 5-minute overview of my first session. I am a therapist, mediator, attorney. I'm never sure why clients are coming to see me. And often they're not sure. They could come in because they're depressed, but they really have a relationship issue that they don't want to talk about. They think their only options are to stay in the relationship or get divorced. They don't want to do either one. So instead they're overeating, and they bring in their problem is they can't stop eating. But when you talk about what's really going on with them, what's really at the base of their issue, you find out that there's really a relationship issue. I married my college sweetheart. We were married for 20 years. I was an attorney, but I got to stay home and raise my children. When we were looking at a separation, I became a mediator, thinking I would mediate my own divorce. I often say that it's like delivering your own baby. It might be possible, but don't do it, especially if you're codependent. You're too interested in making sure everybody else's needs are taken care of, but not your own. I became a lawyer, then a mediator, and I was in school to become a therapist because that's where my heart was. I wasn't really an adversarial participant in the legal process. I'm a very spiritual person, even though for many years I didn't say that out loud, but now I do. And I knew there had to be a better way to communicate and to divorce someone that you once promised to love forever. I got my licensed clinical professional counselor license, and then I met Dick Schwartz. And when he took me on the first meditation to take yourself up the mountain and leave the parts of you behind, the parts that are angry and sad and scared and ambivalent and self-critical and judgmental and blaming, you know what I mean. When you can separate from your parts and get to that higher self energy, that calm, clear, compassionate energy, that's how change happens. That's how healing happens. That's how you become an expert in helping people get to that higher self. Thich Nhat Hanh, the great spiritual teacher, once said that the way to get to peace is to go to one side and talk about the pain of the first side, and go to the other side and talk about the pain of the first side. And that's what we do when we're helping people, both with IFS and compassionate communication. We're helping them access that higher self energy, first of all, by introducing it. And I'll explain how I do that in my first session. And then letting your clients know that until now, they've done the best they've known how to do, based on what they've been taught as children, based on their limiting beliefs and judgments, based on their experiences. But with your help, your expert help, they can do better. So back to the first session. So people come in, and now they only come in on Zoom. I used to have an office for many years, but since COVID, I'm only on Zoom. So you too can be on Zoom and spread your expertise wider. And if I'm seeing an individual, it's the same individual session. If I'm seeing a couple, I separate them and do the initial interview with each of them separately and then put them back together. So let's say a couple is coming in and they come in together on Zoom, and one of them had called me to make the appointment. So I make sure I talk alone to the other party first. I don't want them to think I'm aligning with their partner just because they spoke to me first. So I'll do a couple questions about how can I help, if they're talking about a marriage, how long you've been married, any children, just a little chit chat before I separate them. And again, this can be done with an individual, with a partner that never shows up. You can still become the expert for that person and positively intervene in a way that heals their relationship, no matter what form it takes in the future. So I will meet with each of them. They come to you for the first time. They want to tell you their story, on and on about their story, thinking if you have the facts of the last 10 years, not only will you have an overview, but you'll also understand why they're right and somebody else needs to change. I will politely listen for maybe 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, I'll see. But usually what I do is I stop them to ask them a series of questions, all of which are in my certification, templated, outlined, et cetera, but we'll come back to that. But I ask them a series of questions geared to my getting an overview of, number one, how much self-energy. And in IFS, we talk about self as calm, clear, connected, compassionate, courageous, curious, creative. And I'm looking to see how much of that energy they have. And usually we're not in self very often. And I'll tell you how I introduce that to them, because I'm looking for what parts are they bringing here. And here's how I ask the question. As they're going into their story, I will say, I would love to listen to everything you have to share with me, but if I do, you're going to walk out of here 45 minutes just feeling marginally better. You will have felt witnessed, but you won't have a change in perspective. So if I could ask you a few questions, I might give you some tools that you can use today. Would that be okay? And they often buy into that. And if they go back to their story, I'll gently remind them, I want to hear more, but let me ask you these questions. And here's the questions. First question is, how can I help? What do they want to see happen? And rather than going into everything that's wrong, I want to set their GPS. And I often ask them, if you had a magic wand, what would you like to see happen? And if they want their partner to change, I remind them their partner can change on their own, but they can't change their partner. They can't change their response to their partner. Then I'll ask a series of questions that, what is the partner doing that is bothering them? And I'm, okay, he's withholding, he doesn't talk to me, he's on his phone all the time. And what do you do? Sometimes I yell, and sometimes I withhold, and sometimes I just go in the other room and cry. And then I said, how are you feeling when you do that? I'm feeling sad and I'm feeling angry. And then I said, we'll say to one party, if I were talking to your partner now, what would they be telling me about you? And then he might say that I'm nagging him all the time, or I'm too needy. And then what does he do when he thinks that? He'll lock himself in the room or work too long, and then we'll just be in a fight. So I'm listening for their parts. Okay, I'm listening. What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they doing? And I'm taking all my notes on a sheet of paper, on a templated sheet of paper that I give you. Then I ask a couple questions. Can you tell me a little bit about your family of origin? What was your mom like, your dad like? How many siblings? Where were you in the hierarchy? And I can do this in about 2 minutes. You can do this in about 2 minutes, because what I'm really listening for is, was there any addiction? Was there any divorce, mental illness, family secrets? Were they the first of 5 kids or the last of 4? What was their relationship with their parent? Because I'm trying to get the milieu in which they grew up. And then I'll ask them, describe your partner's family of origin, which they've never thought about. And then Mary will recognize John's father was an alcoholic and he was the oldest of 5 kids. And I said, he probably didn't get the nurturing he needed, right, Mary? And she thinks for the first time, no, he probably didn't, which gives her a bird's eye view, a more self-led view of the fact that her husband has certain limits and she doesn't have to be so mad at him all the time. She can have compassion for how he grew up, and she can change in how she relates to him. So then I will ask Mary, or whoever I'm speaking to first, do they have a word for spiritual? And I'm not looking for religion. I'm looking for, what word do they use that I call self? Is it higher power, nature, universe? If it's God, I'll say, where is God? And they'll say everywhere. And then we'll get to the place where God is in them. And I reflect back, that's what I'm talking about, self. So if I'm working with an individual, that's basically the interview right there, 10 minutes. And then if I'm working with a couple, I'll go do the interview of the other party, and then I'll put them back together. Here's my expertise that I want to offer you. I say to them, this is all templated, scripted in the certification, just a little plug for you learning more. And if you have to leave early, go to kroll.com/certify, find time for a 15-minute chat. Okay, so that was the plug. Let me get back to the interview. I bring them back together. And I say to both of them, thank you so much for sharing with me what you did. We'll have more time. I know there's more to share. I say to them, but I'd love to give you my blurb. Is that okay? I've got a 2-minute blurb. I'm going to give you my blurb. I believe we have a healthy self. And when we're in self, we are calm, clear, and compassionate. You know those moments? They're just moments. We're not always in self. We're in parts. We're in parts that we exile, parts that we manage with, and parts that we get extreme with. And those exiles are the parts that we learned in childhood weren't going to get our needs met. So if we felt sad, scared, hurt, we didn't want to feel that way. We pushed it aside. This is the ultimate, what about me? Who's ever going to love and care for me the way I need? That's our inner child. And we exile him or her. And we go out in the world and we manage. We manage by being nice, pleasing, caretaking, hardworking, stoic. And a lot of us manage by putting on what we call a pseudo self, where we look like we're in self, but we're really hurt or sad or feeling those exiled feelings underneath. And when our managers can't contain those exiles, we get extreme. In IFS, they call them firefighters. After 9/11, I didn't call them firefighters anymore. I call them extreme parts, but we get extreme. We eat too much, drink too much, exercise too much, shop too much, have a panic attack, get depressed, go have an affair, decide, get me divorced. I want to get out of here. It's not that getting a divorce is a bad thing, but you don't want to do it from extreme behavior because that does a lot of triggering. I help each party know is this is how you met each other. You both came in from families of origin that created some wounds. You did the best you could to manage, and now you're in my office because you want to do better. So Mary, when John is working too much and you're sad, instead of telling him you're sad, you get mad at him. And then he feels judged, which reminds him of what his father used to do to him. And he shuts down, which is the way he used to deal with his father. Is that right? I check in to see if I'm on target. I usually am. And then I say, so when I'm talking to you about your avoidance or your judgment or your anger or your sadness, how does it make your body feel? And we actually do some somatic work, meaning we check in with the body because our minds go somewhere, our bodies know the truth. And usually the body is tightening up in some way. And what we want to do is create a little more space and a little more self. I'll have them put their hands on their belly. In fact, I invite you to do it now. Put your hands on your abdomen. Inhale, abdomen out. Exhale, belly button back to your spine. Good. Inhale, abdomen out. Exhale, belly button back to your spine. Good. That's what I ask them to do in my Zoom room because I mentioned to them their self is already there. Their parts are acting up, all chattering at once. And when you do some deep breathing, you bring a little more self energy in. And then I do a guided meditation with every client that comes in. The first session that they come in, whether they come in for anxiety, depression, relationship, whether they come in for marriage counseling, whether two people are so mad at each other, they both want a divorce and they just want to get to the legal information. I still do the guided meditation. And I give you the script for that so you can use it with your clients. It's a way to go to your higher self and send compassion to your partner. And if you want to get that higher self, go to lindakroll.com/CCC and you'll get access to my guided meditation. I feel it's really important for us to model how to be in self, to show them how to be in self. When you get this expertise, you then increase your impact. When you learn the skills of compassionate communication and compassionate mediation, and you increase your expertise, your impact increases because number one, you can go deeper with your clients. You go deeper in that you learn how to help them with their parts. Whether you're using an IFS tool like the conference room, where you invite your parts that are ambivalent, anxious, angry, scared, sad to sit at a table and you go in and higher self and listen. I often create a spa where I ask parts to go find a massage chair, massage table, some yoga mat, someplace where they can relax and not work so hard, or a beach, go find a beach chair along the ocean and ask all your parts to relax. And doing that helps you look at the limiting beliefs that you grew up with, helps your clients do that, and gives you more insight into what's holding them back. So that's how I work with the managers, the letting go of the limiting beliefs, judgment, ego-related shoulds, oughts, expectations. And you also increase your impact because you learn how to help people unburden the pain from the past. Now, being a therapist helps, but even in the coaching certification, I give you tools where you can help guide them to, instead of focusing on the energy that they're still carrying and the wounds that they're still carrying, you help them let go of those, give them back to the people that created it, back to the universe for God to transmute, and you help them reparent themselves. You help them figure out what a perfect mother would have been, what a perfect father would have been, what a perfect family would have been, and how that would have changed their lives. And then you invite them to be that mother and father to themselves and to continue to give that inner child, inner teen, inner bride, inner groom, the love and the comfort and support that part needs. Then I invite them to open the crown of their head and open their hearts and receive from God, the universe, higher power, nature, receive unconditional love and support. And then just channel it to the parts that need healing. There are so many tools that could increase your expertise. There are so many tools and techniques and meditations that will increase your impact. Not only can you go deeper with your clients, but you will have more clients because your impact will be felt as a referral source. You will, especially if you take the certification, it's the Compassionate Mediation Coaching Certification. You can go to lawyers and tell them you can help their clients. You can go to therapists whose clients need to communicate better, either before, during, or even after a divorce. You can go give workshops at a local church or synagogue. You can do groups online. In fact, 2 of my participants of the last cohort that I led, and you can hear from them on lindakroll.com/certify. They spoke there. Dorothy and Jan put together their own membership. They're using the templates and materials and the manuals and the handouts and the exercises and the questions I gave them to build on that to create their dream. That's what I want for you. I want you to learn my expertise, to merge with your expertise, to deepen your impact, to give you a skill set that most therapists, coaches, mediators, attorneys don't have. If you're a therapist, you're not taught to be a lawyer. But in my Compassionate Mediation Coaching Certification, because I am a lawyer, because I have all that information, I give it to you for you to share with your clients, not to be a mediator or an attorney, but to stay one step ahead of them. If they are talking about whether or not to stay or go, and you can help them talk about what would it look like if, what would it be if you did want to sell the house? What would it be if you did divide your assets? Again, you don't have to know the answers, but the minute you ask the question, you'll see all their parts come out, their fear, their sadness, their anger, their remorse, their guilt, their shame. You help them with the process. So the content I give you, and there's a lot of it, helps you process with your clients for a very long time. So your impact goes deeper, farther, wider, and your income also increases. Because not only will you keep them longer, you will have more clients. You will become known as a therapist or coach, a mediator, attorney who has an expertise where you help people heal at the same time they transform their relationship. That's where your expertise really takes over. When you do that, you have the confidence to offer it in any way you want to. That's what I want to help you do. You can enhance your expertise by getting a mentor, by showing up in a group that supports you, by learning more about IFS, which is all in the groups that I do, by getting even a marketing strategy. And we talk about that in the certification too. And I don't want to talk about marketing because I don't like that word, but on the other hand, you have to put yourself out there. I'm so grateful for those of you that are here that did not know me before I put myself out there. I want to help you put yourself out there, whether it's learning how to create a group, whether it's learning how to talk to someone, whether it's putting out a workshop, whether it's introducing yourself to a church leader and giving a speech there. We talk about networking. We talk about sharing our gifts, and we talk about it in a way that's not marketing, because as spiritual people, healers, leaders, there's something anathema to us about that. On the other hand, there's a lot of roadblocks in there too. If we don't share who we are, what we offer, what we do, we cannot help more people. Whatever roadblock is in your way, we do a lot of mindset. We do a lot of personal healing in the groups because we meet every 2 weeks for 2 hours. And in the off weeks, you will have someone in the group that you will practice everything with. But in the groups that I lead live, we do examples, and you can bring an example of someone you're working with, but many people bring in their own examples, their own relationships with their children, with their partners, with someone they're working with. So the amount of healing that happens is also adding to your expertise because it doesn't just make you a professional expert, it makes you an expert in your family. And there's so much healing and your relationships. This is by invitation. It's a general invitation to learn more about compassionate mediation, becoming an expert in conflict resolution, IFS. I really am selective in terms of who joins these groups. They're very small, and they're small specifically because I feel that my commitment is to the people in the group to really meet you where you are, not just teach you a bunch of facts or send you to a very vibrant, compassionate communication academy, but more important, to touch your heart where you are now, to hear what your goal is for your life, no matter how old you are. It's never too late to manifest your dreams. I have found that being in community makes it happen better. That when I'm working alone, it can be lonely, it can be overwhelming, I get stuck in my own head. But when you infuse that with other people who are also lifelong learners, who also have a spiritual heart, who are also committed to being of service, and not just service to the world, but service to the other people in the group, it becomes a family, it becomes a hub, it becomes a harbor. And there's nothing more exciting to me than creating a nest and then seeing all the birds take flight in whatever direction you want to go. So if this resonates with you at all, please join me. Please go to lindakroll.com/certify. Find 15 minutes, no pressure, I promise you. I just want to know, where are you? Where do you see yourself in 6 months or a year? And I will be honest about whether I feel that I can help you get there and that this would be a fit for you. And if it is, we'll talk about finances. And if it's not, we'll still talk about how I can be of help, how I can support you, and we'll make a new friend. I look forward to talking with you later. For those of you listening to the replay, please don't hesitate. Join now, lindakroll.com/certify. You'll hear from 3 past participants, not just about me, but about the other people in the group. It really is a transformational experience. You're here. There's no accident that you're here. If you need a nudge, let me help nudge you. You'll be glad I did. Again, no pressure, just an invitation. Someone asked me last time if you had to be a therapist, and the answer is no, you don't. And a lot of people have coaching certifications, but many people just have a desire to be of service. And I listen for, how much self-help have you done? How evolved are you? How much self-energy do you have? And what is your expertise in offering this to others and to share it with others? So that's what I'm looking for, just because you're still here, my little bonus presentation. We all have an inner child. And when we have an inner child, we are hurt, we are sad, we are scared, we're all those things. We exile those feelings and we learn how to manage. Guys, forgive the gender bias, but could go either way. Guys try to look cool, don't deal with their feelings. We girls often get codependent. Here's my codependent doll. I bought her. She looked exhausted when I bought her. She used to say, I love you, when you pushed her stomach. Now she's too tired to do that. But we get codependent. We want to take care of everybody. We don't want to do what we need to do for ourselves. We just make sure everybody else is okay. And then later we resent it because, you know, the whole codependent thing. But then when people don't get their needs met, they get angry. And then they act out, passive aggressively or aggressively. And this might be how they come to your office or how you're relating in your family or whatever. Take a deep breath. These are our parts. IFS helps us work with our parts, helps us understand that they're all carrying burdens. And when we help them let go of their limiting beliefs and judgments and burdens, they can relax, go to the spa, go to the beach, and we can take over from our higher self. So we thank our parts for protecting us. And we learn how to let them know they don't have to protect us, because what we're going to do is we're going to become much more self-led. And when we're self-led, we learn how to speak for our exiled parts. And in my second session, I told you I did the meditation in my first session. In my second session, I teach people how to be empathetic. I have a handout on the miracle of empathy, which is also in the course, another little plug. When you teach the miracle of empathy, you teach people how to speak for their parts instead of from their parts, another IFS trick. Where instead of being angry and yelling, they say that they're angry because they're trying hard to deal with and be a good husband, but sadly, they are hurt. And when someone learns to use an I message to talk about their own pain instead of you message, you did this, you neglected me, use an I message, you talk about your hurt, your sadness, your fear, the other party can listen from their higher self and have compassion for this part you're speaking for, instead of reacting to the parts you're speaking from, right? And then there's a way to meet in the middle and create a new dialogue. So many people that come to me and they both want a divorce, once they've done the miracle of empathy and learned how to listen, understand, make amends, miracles happen. That's why I call it the miracle of empathy. And people learn how to forgive and create a new relationship. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more I want to share. Looking forward to talking to all of you and sending my love. And if you don't want to do this certification, but you just want to chat, lindakroll.com/certify. I'd love to meet you. I'll talk with you soon. Sending love. Bye for now. Bye, everybody.